So I'm going to share my screen. Okay. Right, and hopefully everything will just move very smoothly through the slides. So welcome everyone. Welcome to the session on OneLib OneRef for the May campaign. I did ask in the chat before we hit the record button. Okay, we are recording. Before we hit the record button, sort of who was new to Wikipedia, who is for whom is this an introduction? I mean, to the OneLib OneRef campaign. Yeah, to get a sense of who's new. And who's here for a refresher. So both myself, Lynn, and Lisa Marie Hutton do work on OneLib OneRef, do a lot of work with Wikimedia South Africa, the chapter, sort of leading the librarians in the various programs. But obviously the OneLib OneRef campaign is a major campaign for us internationally. So let's get started. So what is the OneLib OneRef campaign? So twice a year, OneLib OneRef, which is abbreviated for One Librarian, One Reference, asks librarians across the world, and actually anyone who has a passion for free knowledge, to add missing references to articles on Wikipedia. And as you'll hear in the campaign, it's not just about adding those missing references to Wikipedia, because we are going to look at Wiki Data as well. But currently on the English Wikipedia, there are 427, call it 428,000 articles that have citation needed statements. This is one of the most heavily used websites in the world. In fact, if you do a Google search on something, guess which entry comes up top or close to the top. So people use this all the time. It is a kind of one-stop shop for information, but actually it's a starting point for information. Let me play the campaign video, which I'm going to, hopefully you can.
To Wikipedia.
Sorry, let me start that again.
Imagine a world where every librarian added one more reference to Wikipedia. The OneLib OneRef campaign seeks just that, the gift of one citation to make Wikipedia better and more reliable. Wikipedia has over 500 million readers, but not enough citations for all of our facts. We need the help of many librarians around the world to take your reference expertise and share it with the public, who use Wikipedia often as a starting point for research. Librarians are at the heart of knowledge distribution, quality information, and verifiability. Participating in the campaign extends your impact to millions. To contribute, first, review a sentence that needs a citation using citationhunt.org. Second, find a reliable source that can support the statement. Third, add a citation using Wikipedia's site generator, which makes it simple to format a reference from any URL, DOI, or ISBN. Fourth, add the project hashtag OneLibOneRef in the Wikipedia edit summary, then click Publish. Fifth, share your edit on social media to encourage others to participate. You can join the campaign even if you're not a librarian. Every person who cares about reliable, free knowledge is invited and appreciated. Participate today to ensure a better Wikipedia for all. Visit www.oneliboneref.org for more information.
right. Oh, it's going to try and play it again. Right, sorry, hold on, there we go. So this is the meta page for the page with all the information that I'm essentially going to share with you. So very useful to go and have a look at. As I say, the campaign runs twice a year. So January the 15th to February the 5th, and then from May the 15th to June the 5th. So it's a 3-week period where you can add citations. So how to participate, as that video indicated, you need to find an article that needs a citation. You need to find a reliable source that can support that citation in that article. And that, in fact, is not often as easy as it sounds. It is often not a quick process. The quick process is adding the citation using Wikipedia style, add the project hashtag, the hashtag OneLib1Ref, and we're actually asking South African librarians to include the hashtag Wikimedia ZA in the Wikipedia edit summary, and you'll see what I mean. And then if you are participating in the African Librarians 2.0 week, you need to add the AFLib week hashtag as well. And you then share that edit on social media. First things first, if you don't have an account, you need to create one. Sorry, what I meant to say earlier on is you can pop questions into the chat. Lisa Marie is keeping an eye on that. So if there are things that you want to know or want me to repeat, please just pop it into the chat. So first things first, if you don't have an account, you need to create one. Yes, anyone can add citations without registering, but actually, why do that? Why not put your name to the work that you do? And then under preferences, and you'll see on the screenshots now, you need to go to the editing tab to make sure that you're getting the visual editor. There are 2 forms of editors on editing styles. Editing styles is probably maybe not quite the right word, but there's one with a lot of coding and there's one with the visual editor. So you know what you see is what you get. That it looks like a Word document. And then you need to look for an article that needs a citation. So in fact, what you're going to probably end up doing is you'll find an article and then you've got to go off and find a source. So I just want to show you, this is how you create an account. Your username will be public. The recommendation is to perhaps not use your real name, although I have, and Lynn has, but to and then to actually add an email address as well, so that should you forget your password, you actually can retrieve it. And then, as you'll see here, under preferences, the editing. The editing over here will allow you to choose the visual editor. But there are all sorts of things. So you can set up your appearance. As you can see at that point, when I did this at the beginning of the year, I had 59 edits under my belt. So right. So how do you know when an article actually needs a citation? So just look at this particular page. This is an article that actually shouts, "I need work." You'll see that there's plenty of citations needed. And in fact, it's a very short article with only 2 or 3 with 1 reference and 3 external links. And in fact, it's telling you that there is a problem. That there is a problem with this particular article. It needs additional citations for verification. Wikipedia articles operate on that assumption of verifiability. Literally every statement in an article should be verifiable in a footnoted source. And we'll talk a little bit about what makes a good reference, what makes a source good to add as a reference in Wikipedia. But this just gives you an idea. So where you're going to see the citation needed, this says, oh, there's work that needs to be done. So how do you contribute to the campaign? Well, find an article where citations are needed. You can find an article with sourcing problems, an article that needs updating, and there are quite a few of those as well. You can be browsing, looking at your favorite topic, and you can come across an article that needs a citation. You can also, if you are perhaps in an academic library, or not even in a public library, add a source from your collection or research to further reading or the see also sections of an article. So there are quite a number of ways that you can contribute to the adding to Wikipedia. Lynn will cover Wiki Data in a moment. So a really good way to find where a citation is needed is to use that Citation Hunt tool, which offers those random citation needed statements. And you can also go on the Citation Hunt, go to the bottom and choose a category of an article to which you have a special expertise. And then essentially you let your librarian skills kick in, because you need to find a source for that citation. So this is what Citation Hunt looks like. So essentially, it's telling you that this needs a citation. This is where you can go to pop in a topic. If I'm looking for South African film, for example, I can put South African film in there. If I click on fix the snippet, it'll take me to the full Wikipedia page. And at this point, you then need to see if you can find a citation, a source for, in this case, this particular statement. Right. So there actually is a really useful web page on Wikipedia which lists a whole lot of articles with unsourced statements. And you can actually go there and say, all right, I actually want to look at what there is for Southern Africa, or what there is under food and drink. And you can pull up all those articles that don't have any, that are shouting citations needed. You can select an article while browsing, or you can add an external link or further reading. So there might be another really good cookbook about cook sisters or kus sisters, and you could add that to the list of references. That is one way of adding a citation. And as I say, you can cite a source from your own collection or research. So reliable sources. What are reliable sources? For Wikipedia, it's any source with a history of editorial control. It's what you would actually point a user to if somebody came to you in the library and asked for information on a particular topic. What would you point them to? What reference book would you give them? It's the same principle. So if it's something that you would point a patron to, then that ticks the box. As far as journals are concerned, open access is first prize, but again, some knowledge, as we know, can only be found in print books or behind paywalls. It's like any other kind of a reference that you would have in a reference list. Sometimes it isn't available online. And then you would put in the print details. So you're not tied to just what is available online. Wikipedia also gives you this really useful list of reliable sources. So, you know, sort of what do they consider to be reliable sources? So Al Jazeera is generally considered a reliable news organization, but you probably are not going to put in articles, make a reference to articles in the Daily Voice, for example. So it's again that question of what would you point a patron to? There's another page as well, which also will help you to talk about reliable sources. Wikipedia has a process of new page of Wikimedians who are called sort of new page patrollers. So they'll keep an eye out on the new pages that are the new entries that are created. This is particularly in English, and will review new articles. And this particular page is a really useful source again for information about what makes a good, reliable source. So the mechanics of adding the citation are quite straightforward. You click to make changes to the articles. There's very precise, you have to be quite precise about where you put the cursor. You click the cite button, so you'll see that this will come up, and it'll allow you to put in either the DOI or the ISBN. Well, that's first prize. If you don't have to, you know, where it'll be auto-generated, but you might have to put in something manually. And you would then insert that added citation into the article. You would click on the publish button, and then you would get this edit summary. And this is where you would be putting in, added citation, hashtag #OneLib1Ref, and all the various hashtags. I've just used this as an example. Took something from Citation Hunt. I looked at crime in South Africa, and there was a stat for police stations, citation needed. Okay, you know, how difficult can this be? I mean, you would think that the SAP's website would actually list the number of police stations. And this is what the article looks like. So I clicked through to the article, got the article. And again, here we go, thinking about sources. Which sources would you use? I did eventually find the stat on the SAP's webpage, but it wasn't in the obvious place. Yeah, go figure. Here's one again for Somerset Hospital. I actually looked at a list of the hospitals in South Africa and saw that this needed a citation. Apparently there's a studio on top of the hospital, which was built by the BBC during the FIFA World Cup, and it needed a citation. So it was a case of then going to try and find a citation, which I did. And again, edit. I'm just flipping over this, edit. I clicked on the edit button. I could go in and add the citation. I had to do it manually. It was an article that was in the Weekend Argus. After doing some searching to locate this, and then I put into the edit summary what I needed to do, and I clicked publish change. And then down at the bottom, you'll see that the reference to that newspaper article has been listed there. And now I'm going to hand over to Lynn. Lynn, just tell me when you need to have the screen changed.
Okay, no problem. I was just going to ask how we're going to do this, but I will be happy if you can change the slides for me. So thank you, Ingrid, for that informative overview of Wikipedia and how we can contribute to the articles and ensuring that we add more reliable sources, which brings us now to Wiki Data. And before I start, I would just like to acknowledge Lisa Marie. We've been working together in preparing these slides to introduce our audience today to Wiki Data. So I have to start, first of all, by sharing a bit of my encounter with data and structuring data in the past. When I was first exposed to Wikidata, as much as it was overwhelming, and to an extent still is, as I still need lots of practice, I couldn't help thinking back to my early days enrolled in a PhD program and the tedious process I followed studying social networks of chemistry researchers with their collaborators and what that meant for academic libraries. So the images that you are seeing on the left-hand side is what I extracted from the work that I was doing at the time, and part of studying the social networks presented this at one of the international conferences. So one would see that the two images on the left are network diagrams that were generated using Usenet. But getting to this point of generating network diagrams, as I have indicated on the screen on the left, resulted in a long process of back and forth with guidance from the Usenet expert at the University of Bologna to ensure my data that I collected and recorded were coded and structured properly. If I think how easy it is these days to generate something similar, which includes far more linkages and connections within a fraction of the time using a query in Wikidata, it is well worth exploring the possibilities Wikidata has to offer libraries and researchers. There are two scholars from the Freie University in Berlin who conducted a study in 2019 on Wikidata from a research perspective, a systematic mapping study of Wikidata, and describes that what makes it intriguing is that Wikidata's content is also stored as a knowledge graph, as you can see illustrated in the image on the right-hand side of the slide. Ingrid, you may move to the next slide, please. So what is Wikidata? And these colleagues and also the IFLO Wikidata working group describes Wikidata as the sister project of Wikipedia, and it is a collaborative knowledge base which is openly accessible and contains human-readable as well as machine-readable data. And Wikidata was launched in October 2012, and since then it has been one of the most edited knowledge bases with around 20,000 active users dating back to 2019, and those numbers are just increasing. The main goal behind Wiki Data's development is to provide structured data for Wikimedia projects to overcome the data inconsistencies of Wikipedia's language versions. Wiki Data is designed in a way that anyone can edit, browse, consume, and reuse the data in a fully multilingual form. The IFLA working group, they have developed wonderful Wikidata YouTube videos. And in those videos, they describe and discuss many useful aspects. And they indicated that many libraries are recognizing Wikidata as an authority control hub. And through automated editing, it is now easier to track a withdrawn identifier. Generally, it is difficult to track how often things appear in search results. Therefore, the ultimate goal is moving toward well-curated clusters, the impact of sharing bibliographic data, and of course, cleaner, richer data sets which are vital for data reuse. Next slide, please. Which brings us to aspects that we librarians may consider. Librarians can make a valuable contribution to Wikidata by adding broad or narrower terms, linking our institutional repository records in Wikidata, and consider what our knowledge graphs of the future should look like. And they are really very valuable outcomes by matching authors to the data. And what would be ideal is also to consider adding Wikidata IDs in catalogs. We should also be considering what digital transformation would mean for us and what this would look like in the future using Wikidata. And what collections have connections of sharing data is also something that we need to consider. And here we don't have to be too complex. We can start small, strategize towards what we want to get out of it. And Simon Cobb said that we need to be brave and just try things. Next slide, please. So on this note, let's explore briefly how we can do this on Wikidata. So what you see on the slide right now is an article from Wikipedia. And if we wanted to know whether the data is sitting in Wikidata, well, yes, it is, because it is linked. You will see that on the left-hand side of the screen, there is a link to Wikidata items. So this is an article by and about Douglas Adams. And by clicking on the Wikidata item, one would then see that Douglas Adams is also an item on Wikidata. So we are going to look at that now. Next slide, please. Okay. So in Wikidata, an item is equivalent to a Wikidata entry. So an item is a thing or a concept or entity, for example, like a country, a person, a book, a point in time, a philosophy, or a process. And these items are represented with the letter Q, followed by a number. In this case, the item is a person. So now we'll see how it works. Next slide, please. Okay, so items also have aliases, which are alternative names for items. You will see on this slide that the various sections have labels. So you'll see that we have property, we have statements and values. So a property is a specific relationship that connects an item with a value. In Wiki Data, properties are represented by the letter P followed by a number. A property also takes a value. So a value can be text, a number, or even another item itself. The item property value is a triple that constitutes a statement. Multiple statements are stored within a single item. So there are a lot of information and resources available that assist you with understanding the item property value and the statements. Next slide, please. Okay, so maybe this will now start making a bit more sense as to how this works and understanding how Wikidata actually operates, because as explained earlier, it is human readable as well as machine readable, and that is why one sees the Q numbers, P numbers, and so on. So understanding that statements on Wikidata consist of an item property value as illustrated on the slide. You'll see under the item is Douglas Adams, and the property is an instance of, and the value a human. So that is the human readable way that it is presented, and as you can see illustrated below is how you would see the machine readable format of the item property value. So the focus of Wikipedia is structured data and storing representations of knowledge. So I'm not sure if we can see the bottom of the slide, but there is a notice on there that it is similar to the RDF, okay, and there is also further explanation in the resources that's made available on RDFs. Next slide, please. So how do you start creating a new item on Wikidata? Well, one needs to start by first accessing the Wikidata homepage, and what you are seeing currently on the slide is the homepage of Wikidata. And before creating a new item, it is always important, and you can see it's numbered 1 on the slide. It's important to check whether the item already exists. So there is a search box where one can do that, as indicated on the slide at number 1. If the item does not exist, then you can create. So click on create a new item on the left. Next slide, please. So on this slide, this is just an example of the form when you click on create new item. So for this example, we've used Kunene and the King, a play by John Carney, and that was just used as the example to create a new item. And you will see that the fields that are available on the screen, you have the option to choose the language. Under the label, that is where Kunene and the King is recorded, and in the description field, play by John Carney. And then the next field is also relating to the language, and then one clicks on the create button. Now it's time to add statements. So that is the first step in creating a new item. One fills in those fields, click on create, and then you get to this page that is now displayed on screen. So one can now add statements to the newly created item. And one can start with adding properties, which is indicated on the screen under number 1. And here one can find a related item on Wikidata and see what properties are used to describe it. For example, another play. Or the other option is to refer to the list of properties via the link that is provided to find what other related items are available. The next step would be to then add a value, and values are also suggested as you type. So it's quite useful to look at the suggestions that do come up when one starts typing. And then one can add a reference supporting the statement. There are 2 types of references that can be added. So a reference could be a URL. And you use this if you have, or if you want to use a URL, just paste the URL into the value and click save. Or the other reference is stated in P248. Here you could use from a database, you could link to a book, journal article, newspaper article, so on. So you would then use stated in, and the source needs to exist as a Wikidata item. If it doesn't, you have to create a new item. So these are what I've explained now, all illustrated on the slide by the numbers 1 to 4. So one can then click on publish. If you have added in all the relevant items, values, etc., but there are also other possible properties that you might want to add for a play, as illustrated on the right-hand side of the screen. Okay, you could also add the date of the first performance of that author, etc., etc. Next slide, please. Okay, so the other option, if you are not feeling comfortable yet, or you don't feel ready yet to create new items yet, there is the option of editing existing items. So one can do this by starting to search Wikidata for an item you are interested in. And then if you see the item, you could enrich it by adding further statements or by adding references to the statements. So you can also then use the Wikidata query service to find items in need of editing. So one example of a SparkQuell query you may want to attempt is to create a query that shows you a list of contemporary South African actresses. This will allow you to easily see items that are missing and important statements or images, for example, that you could then add to enhance that Wikidata item. So there's a link provided on the slide that you can refer to for further information and also training by Wikidata working group that will assist with quickly getting into creating or editing your first item. So that's where I will leave it for now, as we will explore more about Wikidata features in the upcoming workshops that we plan to conduct. So Ingrid, it is over to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying very hard to get my head around Wikidata, and I need to find time to go and explore that. But there is, if Wikidata is your thing, working with data is your thing, go and explore those options, and look to add in data, or perhaps even I mean, one of the things is you can actually translate some of the data points, can you not, Lynn and Lisa Marie? You can actually translate. It doesn't necessarily have to be in English. So if you are, want to work in another language, you could do that. Yeah, it's a great opportunity to be bold, not to be scared to go out there and to try things, to do the one lib one ref. If that is what you're comfortable with, going to add citations. If you are wanting to get into the Wikidata elements, Lynn and Lisa Marie are your go-to guys. And then what I have put up here, because the One Lib One Ref campaign is actually organized by the Wikipedia Library. You may not know that there is actually a Wikipedia library. It was probably the one most fascinating thing that that we discovered at Wikimedia in 2018. Not so, Lisa Marie and Lynn. They actually have vital, reliable sources there. So it's again access to the databases, and databases that we are familiar with. Sabinet is there, ProQuest, the EBSCOhost, JSTOR. There are a range of databases which is available to Wikimedians who have a certain number of edits under their belt. Essentially, you can imagine if there is a Wikimedian who said that is somebody who edits Wikipedia, who adds the one, works on the One Lib One Ref, works on Wikidata, not sitting in some rural area somewhere, not necessarily here in South Africa, but elsewhere in the world as well, and that they need access to resources, and this is the way that they can actually get access through the Wikipedia library. So that is well worth remembering. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. There is a list of useful references as well, but I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can actually see what is on, if there is anything in the chat and any answers, any questions that you may have. We have about 5 minutes.
Perhaps, Ingrid, I can just add about the multilingual aspects of Wiki Data, because the way I understand it, and that is where this whole machine readable feature comes in, that by having all these items in a machine readable format, then allows one to easily read it in any of the 300 languages that are currently available within the Wiki Data platform. So that makes it quite easy for the different participants and users, that they are then able to translate that items, those statements into and read it in the language of preference.
Yes, it's you know, the Wikimedia Foundation, or let me put it this way, Wikipedia is one of the big projects. Wikidata is one of the other projects. There are a number of Wikipedia projects to Wikipedia, and it's well worth, if you go onto Wikipedia and you look down the is it the left-hand side of the page, you'll see that all the projects are listed there. Go and explore. You know, you're not just left to work with with just adding references to Wikipedia or working with Wikidata. You might be interested in uploading photographs. You might be uploading photos and videos to the commons for people to use, and that would be a contribution as well. So it's really there's so many possibilities to getting involved. Yeah. It's I've done two references already in this batch of this time of one lib one ref, and I hope to add a few more. I'm sitting here with a pile of reference books. That material that I've taken out of my library, that I know there are some gaps about South African sports, for example. There are gaps about South African film, South African TV programs. It's well worth going into. You'll find something that interests you, and even if it is adding a reference, sort of, perhaps not that it didn't need a citation, but you found a really good solid reference that you could refer people to. You could put that into the list of references.
That's a challenge to myself also during this campaign, is to at least edit some of the Wikidata items, and specifically that will add value to our user communities. So that's my challenge.
Yeah. Don't know, Lisa Marie, I don't know if you want to pop to make some comment as well. I think you do work in the Afrikaans Wikipedia page, the Afrikaans Wikipedia.
So Ingrid, yes, I have I've done some translations in Afrikaans and fixed some like grammar errors in Afrikaans, but for the most part, I do the English Wikipedia, and then I just started to explore the Wiki Data and what types of items are on there, like related to South Africa, and actually seeing that there are some gaps, and that's been quite interesting to see.
Okay, which one of you would like to answer Edmund's question about the difference between Wiki Data and Wikipedia?
Well, I'll start then, Lisa Marie, if there's anything that I miss out, please do add on.
Sure.
Well, the difference between the Wikipedia and Wikidata, as Ingrid was illustrating earlier, Wikipedia, yes, is the open encyclopedia, and that is where you have access to the actual articles that are available with all the text and the information. Whereas Wikidata, it's focused on the data. So when you look at the Wikidata pages, you are seeing, as illustrated in the slides, you're seeing statements, properties, and values and items, and the purpose is that you are able to then link to related items and other data, and that you are then able to illustrate it in the form of a knowledge base to have a better understanding of how all these items and data are connected. For example, an author that's connected to various publishers and where these publishers are located versus the collaborators and where are they situated, etc., and how one could make all these type of connections. And as I explained on my very first slide, what I was concentrating on back in 2015 was studying social networks of researchers, and what a tedious exercise it was to kind of make those type of connections and getting to the point where I could generate those network diagrams that I had on the slide, where Wikidata provides you with a quick and easier way to get to that, provided the data are all within recorded within Wikidata, that one could then, through a simple query, generate a knowledge base that illustrates how all the data connects to one another. So I hope that somehow answers the question, Edmund, and perhaps, I don't know, Lisa Marie, if you want to add.
Len, I just added in the chat that Wikidata is about creating the links between data, sort of creating that structural thing and sort of mapping representations of knowledge so that you're connecting, for example, an author with all its works and then connecting the works with the publishers and all, for example. So Wikidata is about that, creating that linked data.
Absolutely. Thank you, Lisa Marie, for adding. It's all, at the end of the day, it's all about the linked data and making those connections.
And then those links can link to the other sister projects and Wikipedia as well. So it all becomes one big knowledge system. Bronwyn had a question about starting a page for a library, but I firstly check to see that whether your library has an entry. It may well be that it's a little stub of an entry, you know, that someone has started it, and then, to be honest, I'd look at a couple of other entries of similar libraries to get an idea of the content that has been put in there, and then to use that as a kind of template and framework. Don't work, you're not going to be going live on Wikipedia at that point. It's like doing a research project, like writing an essay. You would create the sort of create the framework. I mean, I think that was something I learned very quickly when I thought, oh, I could just sit down and write a history of libraries, South African libraries on Wikipedia. It turned out to not be that straightforward. It was again a case you have to go and do your research, gather everything together, find your references, find your sources, and write the article, and then then one would actually put it into a sandbox, and we'll work in a sandbox just to, you know, before the article goes live. So there are quite a lot of processes in the editing. The OneLib OneRef is a much easier way of getting into Wikipedia than taking on writing an article at this point. So it is a good way of just dipping your toe into the water. All right, it's going on it's almost 2 o'clock. We've been here. Bronwyn, right, small steps first. Favorite saying is, how do you eat an elephant? I know our Liasa president says, well, you bring everyone round and you all chomp on the elephant. But for me, if I'm eating an elephant, it's one bite at a time. It is small steps, and the OneLib OneRef campaign is certainly less daunting than trying to actually create content from scratch. There's a wonderful thing that we discuss, something that's called gnome work in Wikipedia circles, and essentially that is like looking at entries and correcting spelling mistakes and correcting grammar, but like Lisa Marie was saying that she did on the Afrikaans Wikipedia. It's called gnome work, so the GNOME, and that's an easy way in as well. Start off small. All right, I think we can stop the recording if we haven't already. Thank you, Anna-Marie. And yes, thank you everyone for joining us. Hopefully you'll be adding a few references, citations, and if you do any gnome work, again, it's the same principle. You actually have to say, you've actually got to do an edit summary of the changes that you made, and that is where you can add the OneLib OneRef citation. I mean, note the hashtag into the summary edit box. So it's quite a range of things. Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Ingrid and Lisa Marie. It was really an interesting conversation. And thank you to the participants for attending, and we wish you well with editing and adding citations or items. Keep well and have a lovely day.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, everyone. Okay. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay. Bye.